All right, guys. Karibuni tena to Full Circle with Joyce, and thank you so much for your company and being a part of the show. Shout out to you guys. Frida Maina, you're watching us from Thika, and you say it's your birthday today. Happy birthday to you, my dear. May you have many, many more. Baba Ben, you're watching us from Yandara County, Ol Kalou, at Exclusive Barber Shop, and you say you're watching. Thank you very much. Sheila Koskei as well. Thank you for the compliments. You're watching us from Nakuru. I have Mururu Lillian. Thank you for the compliments. Chris Black as well. You're watching us from Nakuru. John T. Miles watching us live and clear from Meru. David Dino Turbu Maldaves. You're watching us from Mombasa. Balozi Ken from Kitale. Anoy Murugi from Thika. Mary Muturi Gidurai 45. Charles Kafu from Karatina. Lois Ngugi from Kenyatta Barracks. Kenyatta Barracks, Gilgil, Master Kennedy, Keuku from Kisii, Lispa Mwangi, thank you for the compliments as well. And thank you to so many of you who continue to send in your feedback. I'm going to be getting to so many more of them as we go along with the show. And remember, you can also catch me on Twitter and on Instagram as well. All right, with that said, let me introduce my guest, my very first guest for the day. With me, I have Collins Ojambo, who's a forensic investigator, and also Elsa Wanjiru, who's a fraud examiner. Karibuni sana to the show. We want to talk about the fight against fraud. Now, before we get into that topic, let me point your attention to some other stories here. Okay, today actually happens to be Universal Children's Day, and I wonder, what sort of strides you think Kenya is making as far as our children are concerned. Of course, right now we're all consumed with KCPE, but when you look at our children and I guess where our children are, their confidence, academic performance, social giftings, are we encouraging their creative sides? As we mark International Children's Day, are there specific things you'd want all of us to pay attention to?
Okay, we basically say, you see, the children are basically our future. Mm-hmm. So any investment we make into children, actually it's what is going to sustain our nation or our society in future. Mm-hmm. And education is one of the key empowerment tools that we can give to our children. And of course, the KCP results came out the other day.
Yeah.
And that for any parent, right, it's very important for us to ensure that our children get the necessary education that they require. Because that's what is going to open doors for them in the future, regardless of what they want to do. And when I'm talking about children, I think I'll like to say that the boy child has always been forgotten.
Have they really?
Yeah, there's been a lot of effort towards promoting
Are you
the girl
sure?
child.
Because actually science will show you it will take the female child, the girl child, 140 something years to catch up to the boy child.
But
So, I don't know.
no, but what has happened?
What makes you say that?
What has happened is that because of trying to catch up, we've made a lot of effort to empower the girl child, which is good and positive.
Yeah.
But in the process, we are forgetting the boy child.
But are they forgotten though, if it's still going to take us a century plus, a century and a half? And I think really the question though, sometimes when you talk about boy child is also to ask, where are the men as examples for the boy child, right? Perhaps that could be another side of the issue that we don't really see a lot. I think we're talking about boy child as far as like their education and them getting opportunities, but who's building the moral character of these future generation, as you're saying? So that's my challenge to you as a guy. Elsa, reflecting on International Children's Day, and do you agree with his sentiments that the boy child has been forgotten, or is that just a perception?
I think it's just a perception that is out there.
Yeah,
we care for the men as much as we care for the women. Yeah, I think they should shut down that perception from their minds. Yeah.
Waache tu.
Yeah, waache.
Right. Another thing that's been trending on Twitter, serve Wanjiku first, is that hashtag there. And hopefully you guys can see this image. It's going to be popping up on your screens in just a bit. Real Mato there saying leadership in Kenya has become like a business. Everyone wants to lead so they can get power to get away with embezzlement of public funds. And there it is, popped up for you. MCA is protesting against the adjournment of Kisumu House business because they were pushing to earn double allowances. And of course, the conversation on this continues. Our youth are now suffering while our MPs are busy talking about 2022. How long will we subject Kenyans to elections in 2022 campaigns? Yet they haven't even fulfilled what they first promised. It's all campaigning. Wametusahau hawa, shame on you. And hashtag serve Wanjiku first. Look at this image. How sad that this is the reality of Kenya today. When you guys look at these images, what do you feel? Elsa, you have a very interesting look on your face. It's like you're really trying to select your words carefully.
Yeah. Individually, I feel sad when I look at that image. Coming to think of, I elected the person who's supposed to be feeding me, but I'm feeding him. It's quite sad for the youth, for the women, and for the children, I might say even for the men. Yeah, and I think we should make rightful decision and maybe say no to corruption when it comes to elections, because these guys that give us money to elect them, they usually take up the seats and forget us eventually. Yeah.
Collins?
Yeah, I just like to echo our sentiments and going back to how they get into office. They were taken there by someone, meaning they were voted. They were able to convince a certain voter somewhere to vote for them. And I think it's high time for the public to be aware and to be mad. I don't think we are mad enough with what is going on. And because we tolerate a lot of these things, of course, the cycle goes on. What happens? We go to another election, the same type of characters are elected. And after 2 years, people start complaining.
Yeah.
So I think the citizens need to be aware,
right,
and to remember and to be mad enough so that the leaders or people who are misusing public resources know that the public do not tolerate that.
I think you raised a good point about the public itself being mad enough. And in many ways, we have to ask ourselves, it's like, is it that... I read a very interesting quote yesterday that says, whatever you tolerate, you agree with, or whatever you've refused to change, then you're okay with. And so, the question then, I guess, is, are Kenyans truly mad enough about the state of our country? Someone here was commenting that, we have 416 members of parliament and speakers for both houses. Watu ni wakazi gani? Like 416 people earning some pretty good salaries and are supposed to be dedicated morning to evening, at least 40 hours a week, working on behalf of this country. And yet, 5 years later, a lot of people are questioning whether anything has actually been done. And so to your point then, I like this comment here by Kibet Bernard saying, Kenyans, measure your leader with performance, not mtu wetu nonsense. We will have a better place that way. Let them not bribe you. Ask for your rights. We should not allow politics. And so, fortunately or unfortunately, I think we're getting to a point where, Kenyans are going to be needing that sort of revolution. I just hope we can get there before it becomes, like what we've seen in Libya and in Hong Kong and in other places being very, very violent. Let me know what you guys think about that. Serve Wanjiku first hashtag. Do you think your government, the MPs, your people that you selected are actually serving you as Wanjiku? Or is it that image of us, the people, just feeding and fattening these political leaders? 22999 is the SMS line. You can also comment on our Facebook page and on Twitter at Twitch TV Kenya. Now, let's move on to another topic here, which is on the state demanding Kenyans data from Facebook. That's right. Demands were actually made in the first half of 2019. The social media giant revealed individuals' private information at least once. The government demanded that social networking service company Facebook reveal private information about Kenyan users on 5 different occasions in the first half of 2019. According to the latest transparency report from Facebook, in 4 of the 5 times, the state refused to use proper legal channels while demanding the information, insisting on the urgency of the demand. Facebook complied with at least one of the demands. The social networking giant, however, did not give details of the nature of information the government disclosed. Now, we're just about to start talking about data and fraud and whatnot, and all of that again goes into privacy. As people who work as forensic investigators and all that good jazz, what was CSI and nini? When you hear this story, you could possibly, I don't know if you guys are on Facebook. You are?
Yes, we are.
So tuseme labda you were one of the ones whose data was forcibly taken basically by government, and Facebook itself acknowledges that this is not even legal, like it's not the proper channel, but our government insisted upon it. How do you even begin addressing this issue?
I think
If the government knew it was wrong, Facebook told them it was wrong, yet they still insisted on doing it. How do we even address this issue?
I think for starters, there's a positive step that has happened in our country in the last, actually this month, the last few weeks, when the parliament passed the law on data protection. So at least, you see, for the longest time, privacy was not being addressed in this country. Actually, all our data was just, it was readily available to anyone. And if I give you my data, you can do whatever you want with it. Even before you go to Facebook, just put it in a simple way. When you walk into a building, what do I normally do? I'll tell me, give me your ID.
Yeah, and then
write
they
your
don't
name,
do anything with it.
So
like,
I've
what's
given
it
you
for?
my ID,
Yeah.
I've given you my name, I go to M-Pesa. So we are giving a lot of we giving personal information everywhere. And where this is, where fraud comes in, you see all this information, basically, if you have my identity, you can pose as me. So that's where the issue of identity.
Yeah, and I don't want to preempt the conversation that we're going to be having in a few minutes here, but to this particular story here, that the state actually demanded Kenyans' data from Facebook. So it's puzzling that, sure, fine, within the last month we now have a data protection bill, but this very same year, at least 5 times in the first half of the year, they demanded for our data. What sort of guards then and protections do we as individuals, as consumers of social media and the internet have, if any? Or is this one of those ones where just like vitu ni inauma lakini bado?
Yeah, actually that's where the law comes in. And you see also where Facebook operating, they also have their own laws apply. And in fact, the reason why they didn't comply is because of the strictness of the privacy and data laws where they are. So, but it's something that will never go. All, you see, government traditionally, government in serikali. So they used to, all information was for government. It's only them who are holding information, and they don't allow anyone to access information. When you come to the internet and social media, this Facebook, Google, all these companies, they hold more data than what governments will hold. So the ball game has changed. And now when government is demanding for data, they are demanding from that mindset that we are the government.
Right.
And
but
these are our
it
people.
still doesn't make it right, though.
Yeah, it doesn't make
Right?
it right.
Because it's
Right.
my personal information. It has nothing to do with the government.
Yeah.
Right? So it still doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to take a break from that now as we get ready for our main discussion, this viewpoint. But you guys do let me know if that is as upsetting to you as it is to me. Of course, Kenya has one of the most vibrant online communications, and the data request revelations raise concern that the government is targeting social media users in a growing attempt to stifle freedom of expression online. Currently, proposed amendments to the Kenya Information and Communications Amendment Bill 2019 are due for the second reading in Parliament. The bill wants bloggers to be registered and regulated by the Communications Authority of Kenya. If they don't comply, they will be fined 500,000 shillings or go to prison for 2 years. Wow. If you're a blogger out there, let me know. Would you comply with that bill? Do you feel that it's an infringement of your rights and your expression? I mean, your freedom to express yourself. 22999 is the SMS line. with that said, let me introduce our next topic. Today on Viewpoint, we're going to be focusing on the fight against fraud. Again, fraud continues to be a major issue for a lot of businesses, small, large, medium, even for individuals. Okay. And whether we're growing in a strong economy or facing a challenging economic downturn, fraud seems to ever be present. Well, this week is International Fraud Week, and we want to create awareness on fraud and how to protect yourself or your organization from fraud. And we're going to be discussing the many different types of fraud that do exist, and my guest in studio hopefully will shed some light as well on how you can protect yourself and your data. I think we're going to go on break now, and then we'll be back with that discussion shortly. Stay tuned. This is Full Circle with Joyce. All right, everybody, welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce. Thank you again for your company. Let me shout out those of you who are engaging with us on Instagram. Terry B Designs, I see you. Asante Sana Gengetone Festival as well. Asante Sana for your company too. I do appreciate you guys this morning. Remember, you can keep your feedback coming into 22999. That's our SMS line. And you can also reach me on social media at SwitchTVKE on Instagram and at SwitchTV Kenya on Facebook and Twitter. Shout out to you guys on our SMS line. Reagan watching us from Nakuru. Victor Wanga from Eldoret. Caroline, you say you're tuned in from Juja. Asante Sana for the the compliments. And you say you're looking forward to authentic conversations today and ready to grasp positive content from it. I do appreciate that. Good morning, Joyce. Prince Dano, thank you very much for the compliments. And you say your appetite is sharpened for today's segments. I like that. Thank you. Felistas Okech, you're watching us from Eldama Ravine, Baringo County. You say you love this show. Asante Sana. Someone here watching from Thika. You don't leave me your name, but thank you. Dominic Bakari, I see you. Irene Kahora from G South as well. You say you're watching Full Circle and enjoying the show. Let me get to Facebook, because I do believe I already had a question coming in on our topic this morning on Viewpoint, which, as I did mention, is about the fight against fraud. And I wonder how many of you have been victims to fraud or identity theft or any kind of fraud, and we're going to be unpacking the different kinds here just shortly. But to this discussion point here, Irene Kendi posted, first, we're asking you on Facebook, how can we best fight fraud? Okay, Irene Kendi here says, by first reporting, and second, our police should act without taking bribes or sides, because they are the ones making people not even bother to report when they see someone committing the crime. Very interesting. Dottie Jr. says it can be done by strangling the victims. Oh my goodness. So that they serve as examples. Well, okay, I don't know about strangling them, but let's say that there should be consequences. How about that, Dottie? Wow. But you guys can continue sending in your feedback and comments, 22999. You can comment on our post there. Again, there is the post. There's the post. And again, we're asking you, how can we best fight fraud, as I discussed this with my guests here in studio, Collins and Elsa. So to begin with, Elsa, tell us, what are the different types of fraud? Because there's quite a number, aren't there?
Yeah, there are quite a number of types of fraud. And with the rise in technology, new schemes are perpetrated every day. But if I can start with the most commonly known types of fraud, which is financial statement fraud, healthcare fraud, we have insurance fraud, we have credit card fraud and cyber fraud. We also have payment fraud and asset fraud.
So when you say, let's touch on a few of them. Financial statement fraud, what is that? Someone is forging a financial statement? Or?
Yes. Financial statement is the intentional omission of factuals in a financial statement. It can be done by an individual, or it can even be done by an organization. To get more shareholders or more investors, or even for individual gains.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought usually when someone asks for financial statements, you have to have them certified.
Yeah.
So does that mean that there's collusion happening somewhere?
Yes, financial statement fraud usually takes place with the help of collusion. It can be management and employee. It can even be executive management colluding with senior management.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. And then you've mentioned healthcare fraud. What's that about?
Healthcare fraud is generally related to more insurance when it comes to the healthcare cards. For instance, when you're admitted in a hospital and diagnosed with a disease that requires you to be admitted, yet the doctors and the medical practitioners know that you're not supposed to be admitted, yet they admit you because your insurance cover allows you to be admitted. Yeah, healthcare fraud, I can say, all comes in handy with the insurance fraud.
So that benefits the doctors because
Yes.
then they get fees from it.
Yes, and also benefit the institution.
So there are some people who are sitting in hospital or lying in hospital and they
Yes.
don't really have to be in hospital.
Yes, you don't have really to be admitted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, Collins, so here we're hearing that actually some businesses, a lot of businesses and organizations actually collude to do fraud. And yet most of the times we think that they just fall victim to fraud, but clearly that's not the case. So, for the ones who are actually just falling victim to fraud, how does that occur?
Okay, basically, there are main three ways if you're looking at fraud in organizations, or what we like calling occupational fraud. It takes three forms. The first form, which is very common, is classified as asset misappropriation. So you're looking at assets of the organization, people misusing them. It will be something as basic as trying to use a company car for personal business and all that, but then it grows because any asset of the company can be misused, and it can also be cash.
Okay.
It can be cash or inventory.
Yeah.
The other classification will be on misstatement, like Elsa spoke about financial misstatement, and it will take either the form of either understating or overstating. Yeah. So you're either overstating to make things look good,
Okay.
or understating to make things look bad. And then the third one, which is also very common here in Kenya, is corruption. It has many forms. The most common one is a conflict of interest, because an conflict of interest is when the organization is either buying something or selling something.
From
That
their
interaction
auntie.
with vendors. Yeah. So that's basically conflict of interest. It manifests itself a lot,
Okay.
even to something as recruitment. When you talk about bringing
Sure.
my people, and all that, nepotism, it's all, they can all be fit into conflict of interest.
Okay.
Of course, we have bribery. That's also part and parcel of corruption. So those are the
Right.
three different ways that most fraud in
Organizations fall
organizations.
to fraud.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's turn the conversation now to individuals and specifically look at, how individuals themselves, because there's a lot of people who suffered either identity theft or they're finding their financial data being misused online. Lots of different challenges. In fact, earlier in the year, we saw a BBC journalist confess to almost losing money to banking fraudsters. So let's talk about credit cards, ATMs, debit cards, because, we're trying to move to be this cash light economy as well. But that has its challenges now. So when we're talking about credit cards, debit cards, are those actually safe for us to use? I mean, beyond the convenience, in your expertise as people working in this sort of forensic science, how safe or unsafe are debit and credit cards?
I think I will not say they are safe or unsafe, because they bring value. So we need them. And to some extent, depending on how we manage them, we could say there's some form of safety. But the main thing around anything to do with cards or electronic payments, it brings there's the risk of your data or your information to be used, and then which brings the issue of identity theft. And secondly, when you're talking about cards, there's also bring up the element of the physical card itself. An example will be when you're looking at credit cards and debit cards. There is something that is very common called ATM skimming. Basically, if you put your card into the ATM, there's normally a card reader that is there that's supposed to read the details so that you're able to put your PIN and all that. If fraud syndicates are able to have a card reader there, when you put in your card there, you'll actually basically be they'll be reading the details of your what
That
is in the
means
chip.
there's collusion. Is that then collusion from people who work within the bank? Because how else would they get these other fake systems, the fake readers?
Okay, it may be collusion or not, because because even how it works, just a reader, and a reader is commercially available. So depending on how the security mechanism the bank have incorporated in the machines, they'll be able to prevent that. But you can have a card reader put there by someone without help from the bank.
Okay. So if we're now moving away from like physical use of the debit or credit card to shopping online, which is now a big thing, even here in Kenya. Lots of us have our details really on these websites, and they ask for your mailing, everything that would be required for that transaction to go through. What are some of the measures that we can take then, I guess, to guard ourselves from someone stealing some money or fraudulently taking money from our transactions online?
Okay, for transaction online, first of all, to guard our basic information when we log into system, because anytime you're transacting online, you need to put your details, the card number, address, and all that. It could be your email address and contact. So it's guarding our password and things that we are sharing online when you're logging in is very important. When you look at the online transaction, for example, if you have a card here.
Okay.
Yeah. If you take this card, for example, if I go transact, I'll need to present the card or run the card. But when I go online, all I need is the card number and
the code at the back.
The code at the back.
Yeah.
If you fail to protect this card physically, it basically means anyone who has it can be able to transact with it.
Right.
Yeah, because this is actually now one of the key security features.
Right.
When you are transacting
it's like the
online.
PIN.
Yes, like the pen.
Okay.
Though what most banks have tried to do is to try to have another level of
like your
authentication.
Address.
Yes, when you're transacting online, you get a code via SMS so that they're sure that you're
the one making the transaction.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Elsa, talk to me about hacking. Okay, because people have complained about this even from their social media accounts, but even now their financial accounts. Do you guys hear a lot of cases of people coming forward to report hacking of their financial instruments, or even, but fraud doesn't have to cover just finance, right? It covers even social media. Do you hear a lot of people coming forward to complain about that?
Yes, we've had a lot of people coming forward to complain. And if I may say that hacking is a type of identity theft, because at the end, it's to achieve profit, yeah? And for someone to hack a system, it's either they need something from that system, or even by curiosity, yeah? And I can, for a hacker to be successful, he'll try all sort of ways, all means, yeah? Others can be legitimate and others can be illegitimate, yeah? By legitimate, I see there are those that are contracted by organizations to come and maybe survey the system, see if there are loopholes that can avoid the malicious hackers from penetrating the system. And now we have the malicious hackers whose aim is to penetrate the system for their own benefit, yeah? We also have others who are known as activists, who are contracted by the government to hack other institutions or other states.
Contracted by the government?
Yes, they can be contracted by a government to hack maybe another state's system.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think it's a broad term, and it's a broad scheme that we must be aware of by protecting our data.
So as we wrap up, at least, Collins, you shared how we can protect. For one, we know that debit card, keep it very safe, right? For online transactions and things like those. But now when it comes to these like social hacking, what are your best practices as we wrap up as far as how to then protect ourselves, given, all that you're saying actually exists?
I think for one, you're not supposed to use the same password for all your accounts. You should use very strong passwords when coming to creating account.
Yeah.
Avoid just creating any account because you've been prompted to create, because hackers also send emails prompting someone to maybe log into a website.
Yeah.
We also see cases where you log into public websites and and you're forced to use your ID as your username, and for instance you've lost that ID, yeah, and majority of us like using our mobile phone as our passwords, yeah.
Sure.
If I have your ID and that's the username and I guess your phone number, or I even have your phone number, it will
Right.
be easy for me to access your
Okay.
account
Okay.
via those channels. So I think it's protection of our information
Yeah.
is really key.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
especially because we've all heard and seen those cases of people who, even the way you dispose of your SIM card,
Yeah.
you know, and then someone okotas it, they go and commit crimes with it, and then
Yeah.
you're being arrested for it. So certainly important for you to be very careful of how you store your personal information,
Yeah.
who has privy to it, and you know, even how you dispose of it. You know,
Yeah.
logging off of accounts or closing accounts properly.
Yeah.
Collins and Elsa, thank you so much for coming through to Full Circle with Joyce. I appreciate your time. And guys, we're going to get ready for our next hour here, where we're going to be focusing in on health and wellness. And one of the topics that we're going to be discussing is skin bleaching. I'm really looking forward to talking about that, all of that, and so much more coming up at the top of the hour. Stay tuned. This is Full Circle with Joyce.